Vamos voltar à Terra-média. Mais de 20 anos depois da trilogia Senhor dos Anéis chegar aos cinemas, uma nova história chega ao Prime Video no dia 1º de setembro. Mas a série Os Anéis de Poder se passa em outro período, milhares de anos antes dos filmes do Peter Jackson. E para você entender melhor o que a gente vai ver nesse novo ciclo tão esperado, eu conversei com um dos criadores da série, o Patrick McKay, e com parte do elenco. Bora lá? A Terra-média, criada por Tolkien em 1937, passa pelas chamadas 4 Eras do Sol. Enquanto a trilogia dos cinemas acontece na terceira, a série do Prime Video se passa na segunda Era da Terra-média. Mas o que são essas tais eras? A gente vai contar aqui bem resumido do que se trata, só para poder contextualizar os Anéis de Poder. Se você quiser um vídeo mais completinho, explicando cada uma dessas eras e outros pontos do Senhor dos Anéis, deixa aqui nos comentários. Para começar, a primeira era é marcada pelo domínio de Melkor, ou Morgoth, sobre a Terra-média. Melkor é uma figura similar ao Lúcifer do cristianismo, e ele acaba sendo derrotado em uma grande guerra, a Guerra de Ira. Mas seu tenente era Sauron, que continua a lutar em seu nome. E esse Sauron é aquele mesmo que a gente já viu nos filmes do Peter Jackson. É na era seguinte, a segunda, que Sauron recupera suas forças e cria os Anéis, e a Última Aliança luta contra ele em Mordor. A partir daí, a gente finalmente chega aos tempos das histórias com Gandalf e os Hobbits e o resto da turma da Sociedade do Anel, que a gente já conhece. Depois disso, não se sabe muito sobre o universo de Tolkien, exceto que o Aragorn restaura Gondor e Arnor à sua antiga glória e quase todos os elfos deixam a Terra-média. Os Anéis de Poder se passa justamente na Segunda Era e, como o próprio nome da série já diz, ela vai trazer a história da Forja dos Anéis que Sauron usou para dominar a Terra-média.
Strangely, maybe counterintuitively, finding the story was the easy part. and I say that only because, so Amazon acquired the rights to Lord of the Rings, the appendices, and The Hobbit. And this is, this vast, as you say, rich, dense tapestry filled with ideas, filled with potential stories. But for JD and I, the minute we had the enormous privilege to potentially talk to Amazon about maybe developing a show, and we said, well, what should we do? What kind of show? And immediately we talked about the Second Age. We wanted to tell a new story. We wanted to tell an epic story. We didn't want a story that felt like, a limb on some other body. We wanted something that was a freestanding body of its own for fans and non-fans. And the Second Age seemed the ripest for development. And so from the beginning, we just felt like that's the thing. And then we've, stayed that way ever since. Part of the reason that we felt the Second Age was the story that should be told. It's because it's the story of Sauron. It's the story of his rise. It's the story of the forging of the rings, his deception of all the peoples in Middle-earth, and eventually culminating in the fall of some of the greatest kingdoms that Middle-earth ever had, and all of the peoples of Middle-earth having to band together to defeat him. But the ring survives. That basic storyline feels so epic and so powerful to us and undeniable. That's where we wanted to go. The challenge of creating that feeling of the presence, I can't speak to that. All I can say is Sauron is a very powerful being and very dangerous and a deceiver, and when his name comes up, it means something to everybody.
Mas não é só o Sauron que a gente vai ver mais uma vez. O Elrond e a Galadriel também estão de volta. Lá na trilogia do Peter Jackson, nós acompanhamos uma Galadriel protegendo Lothlórien, sendo conselheira da Guerra do Anel e enfrentando Sauron. Enquanto isso, o Elrond montava o Conselho Branco, praticava habilidades de cura e era tido como um dos maiores sábios da Terra-média. Mas agora a história é outra. Os personagens vão aparecer alguns milhares de anos mais jovens e mais inexperientes.
I just want to say quickly about our cast. These two characters are played iconically, I feel, by two amazing actors. Morveth Clark plays Galadriel. Get ready for Morveth Clark in this show. You don't know what's coming. And Robert Aramayo, who plays Elrond, an incredibly talented actor. And I think people are going to really fall in love with their portrayals.
When I first found out I was playing Galadriel, I was terrified. Didn't know where to start. So I went to the books. I went to to read and listen and watch as much as I could. And there's one point where she talks about that with gaining wisdom, there's a loss of innocence. And that was, when you're an actor, you're looking for that bit that's going to make you be like, no, I understand her. And so that was really useful because she's younger, but she's not young. She's old, but she's going to get much older. And so thinking of her becoming more wise and losing innocence was where I started. and it was nice to know where she was going.
Enquanto eu conversava com o criador e o elenco da série, o tempo todo eles diziam como os livros de Tolkien guiaram as decisões da produção. É por isso que, além de ver mais desses velhos conhecidos das telas, Anéis de Poder também vai se aprofundar ainda mais na história da Terra-média. Númenor, que segundo os livros é o maior reino dos homens da Segunda Era, Númenor vai aparecer em toda a sua glória. E é o mesmo caso de Moria, o Lar dos Anões. Enquanto nos filmes que se passam lá na Terceira Era a gente vê o local já há muito abandonado, em Os Anéis de Poder nós encontraremos uma Moria em seu ápice.
So when you see Númenor, you're going to go through this thriving kingdom, this huge, powerful nation there. And when you walk through the city streets, you're going to see all these big statues, all these buildings. It's a real show of might. But not only that, because Númenóreans, they don't live forever. They're burdened by their mortality. So these are markers, these statues are markers because for the next generation of Númenóreans to learn from maybe mistakes, and they're just sort of moral compasses, I guess, to learn from. Because they don't live forever, they have to leave these behind. So I think legacy and how you view death is a big part of Númenórean culture. I do think at the heart of it, there is an existential dread. And you see that by, I wouldn't say a true lack of respect for nature, but they do just take nature and they build and they put it down. This is what we can do.
So I'm playing Kemen. He is Farazón's son. His dad is a beloved political figure. He's the Chancellor. He, has respect from everybody on that island. And his son would love to follow him into politics, but he doesn't necessarily understand what that means and to really forge a path as Númenóreans. Obviously, the island was gifted by the elves, and when I think we're first inhabiting it, we were kind of following elven ways. We meet the island at a point where we're trying to put that behind us and make our own name for ourselves. And the divide between people who want to go back to those elvish ways and the people who want to, forge their own path, that's causing some friction in society.
So to know that we were going to show Khazad-dûm Moria for the entire season, really, and seeing it at the height of its glory, Khazad-dûm is really thriving when we first see Durin and Disa. It was exciting to know that we got to be the vessel to go behind the curtains of how the dwarves actually live, because I think most of the times that we've seen it's been kind of traveling somewhere or journeying somewhere, and we really get to see us in a domestic, particularly our characters in a domestic setting.
Yeah, just how the dwarves function, usually we see them kind of isolated and talking about the past and what was, and now we get to kind of explore exactly all the dimensions of a dwarf, and there are so many, and all the traits and their cultural dynamics, and just to really bring what's always been spoken about as a tomb to life. And our
house as well.
Yeah, our house is
incredible. So that was our first day on set.
Yeah.
Was when we were hosting Elrond. It was just, the heat was kicking out. So Khazad-dûm, yes. So Khazad-dûm is lit by flames unless daylight can break in. So in every shot there's fire. And it's beautiful, and it lights us very beautifully as well.
Yeah.
It's extremely hot to shoot from day to day, and you come away with like black soot.
And I had this huge ice pack underneath his costume, So in order to cool him down, because I lucked out with a beautiful silky, kind of quite exposed in some areas. So I was kind of okay, although I felt the heat. But Owain had this machine that he would carry.
It was incredible. It was a bag. It was a bag of ice, and I was wearing a vest underneath everything. So every time you see Durin, I'm wearing this vest, right? And it's like underfloor heating. It's got pipes running through it and down the back as well. So you push a button, and then cold water gets pumped through it. And oh my
You'd
God,
see.
it was, After every take, what is it? Put me in, plug me in, and then they'd plug it in and then press the button and it's just like,
An instant relief.
instant relief, yeah.
So when you start making a show, you start with, you're writing your scripts and you write a Bible. They call a story Bible or a show Bible. Page 1 of the show Bible is, we want to build. We want practical orcs. We want Middle-earth to feel tangible and real and lived in, because that's the Middle-earth we know in the books. And so that's the way we did it from minute 1. We built a lot, big sets. We did a lot of shooting on location. We have practical orcs in our show. We have prosthetics. We're using all kinds of old-fashioned visual effects to create the difference in scale between different beings in Middle-earth. Some are shorter than others. Some are taller than others. So we were determined to use a lot of old school movie magic here, and we did. Numenor is an entire city. We built 4 blocks. And a wharf with boats and water. Walking on it was spectacular. We had 200 extras on the wharf alone day 1. It was incredible.
It's a gift as an actor.
Yeah, throwing you into an environment that's completely interactive.
Yeah.
It does half the job for you. If you're looking out, standing on a wall, looking out over a harbour.
Yeah.
It helped that they actually built a harbour
Yeah.
for us to look at. So obviously there are still elements of things you have to imagine, and that's part of your training and skill as an actor, but it really helps. The sets some of them were fully interactive. You can walk into houses. They built a village, they built a city, which made it a pleasure to.
And the supporting actors, there was absolutely loads in Numenor, for example, and they were all given a specific craft.
Yeah.
And we filmed in Numenor for months and months and months. So all those supporting actors knew the character that they were playing loads. So you really did feel like you were just going into, it felt like...
They created the world for us. Yeah.
Bom, e para completar esse nosso guia para você que está ansioso por Anéis de Poder, a gente não pode deixar de falar de alguns dos personagens inéditos da série. Alguns deles foram criados especificamente para a produção, mas são cheios de referências à mitologia da Terra-média. É o caso do Arondir, um elfo que a gente encontra em uma região que ainda não foi explorada nas telas, mas que está nos livros, As Terras do Sul. Já no caso de outros personagens, eles saíram diretamente do Silmarillion, livro que é um relato dos dias antigos da primeira era do mundo criado por Tolkien.
Arondir is a Sylvan elf tasked with watching over the people of the Southlands who, centuries before, sided with the wrong side of things. He is a different elf. He's a woodland elf, but inside that, he's very curious. He's a warrior, but with a very deep sensibility and curiosity for the other, which leads him to fall in love with a human in the village. And I think you'll see a lot of different colors that you haven't seen from elves before. A little bit more grit and something different behind his eyes.
What was important to JD and I was that the show felt like Tolkien. And the way we tried to go about doing that was to go back to the books. Day after day, back to the books, back to the books, back to the books. And what we found in the books was Middle-earth is a more diverse place than people might assume based on some prior adaptations. And so we tried to be true to that. That's it.
Well, he's king of the elves, man. I mean, what's not to like? Well, Gil-galad is kind of a tough love kind of guy, like a loving parent that he probably threw his kids into the water so they'd learn to swim, which seems harsh at the time. But what Gil-galad understands is that evil is constantly right around the corner and you have to be prepared. So a little cold water is not going to kill you.
Bem, o Gil-galad até já apareceu em alguns flashbacks lá nos filmes do Peter Jackson, mas eu tô muito empolgada pra ver mais da história dele em Anéis de Poder. Mas e aí, você curtiu esse esquentar pra série? Acho que agora a gente tá preparado pra retornar ao universo de Senhor dos Anéis, né? Comenta aqui embaixo o que você tá mais ansioso pra ver na série e curte o vídeo. Até mais!